Star Citizen is approaching 200 fully detailed flyable ships in-game, with explorable interiors, unique functions, and specific roles. Well, at least that's how it's supposed to be. Unfortunately, they all need updates, but there's another video for that. Over the years, the number of ships in this game has ballooned, partially due to old concept images finally being made into actual ships, but also due to increased efficiency, a larger headcount at the company, and the use of variants. Not all of these ships are truly unique, and they aren't copies of each other either. Many ships have subtle trim variations, while others can see entirely different purpose ships spawned from the same chassis. Today we're going to look at how Star Citizen got so many detailed spaceships, why we're seeing more delivered to players' hands recently, and why this could be a problem and a blessing. This is a supporter exclusive, originally published in June and released later publicly. If you'd like to see these videos 6 months earlier, see our podcast filmed live, and help support this channel, you can join here on YouTube as a member or over on Patreon in the description below. For all who already have, thank you for supporting my Tomato Talks. People love spaceships. I am also people, so I decree it. CIG also loves spaceships. I think we can all just kind of see that. Spaceships offer both significant new ways to experience a game that is still not made, and a very effective way of funding the making of it. Throughout the year, I've covered how the goals of CIG are mainly to keep people playing, funding coming in, and Squadron 42 approaching release. By the time this video goes public, I have no idea where they will be on each of those goals. But they have made it very clear that there will be new updates and thus new ships almost every month of the year. This keeps people playing and adds to Squadron 42's funding quite efficiently. And it's only a continuing trend we've already been seeing over the last few years. More ships are being announced and released straight into the game, rather than concept image announcements only to come out later. This does two things. First, it means better goodwill, as CIG is delivering actual products rather than constantly putting out pictures and asking people to spend money on them. Even if the game isn't finished, it's more content for the players playing. But it also limits the ships that they are releasing to just the ones with available gameplay. So we're not seeing a deluge of exploration-focused ships, or refining ships, or more hardcore miners, salvagers, ship transport vehicles, and repair depots. Since the available gameplay in-game is still quite limited, they tend to just make racing, combat, and general purpose ships right now. But with so many specialized ships already in the game, they've started to take to making offshoots of these ships that are different enough to be called different ships, but still very clearly built on the same chassis. These take those more specialized ships and makes more general purpose counterparts out of them. You can see this in the Sabre Firebird, the Terrapin Medical, the Prowler Utility, the Guardian MX, and the Asgard. All of these are offering slightly different gameplay in a chassis that's not exactly new. These new ships aren't exactly the same variants we've known the whole time we've been playing Star Citizen. The Freelancer series in this game is filled with variants meant for combat, exploration, and cargo hauling. The 300 series has its own variants for combat, racing, and exploration. The newer Fury series has a racing variant, the Mustang has variants, the Reliant has variants. Even larger ships have variants like the Starfarer and the Kraken. These ships, just like the Cutlass Black, Cutlass Blue, Cutlass Red, were introduced at least as an idea, all at the same time. The Avenger series, the Razor series, the Cyclones, the Vanguards, and others I've mentioned are all like this. You can see some clear differences in the function here. The Cutlass Red is an ambulance compared to the Cutlass Black, but their body and internal layout is largely the same, save for some minor geometry changes and some beds or some hardpoint swap-outs. Turrets might be changed for lights or tractor beams, and separating walls may be added, but these are largely still the same vehicles. The Freelancer Max cargo hauler does actually change up the structure of the ship from the others in its family, like the Dur with more fuel capacity and a better scanner, or the Miss with more armor and missiles. There's definitely a spectrum of variations among variants, and the Freelancer Max goes a little bit further to stretch that, but these ships are still all largely the same, thus making them pretty straightforward variants, as far as players have been aware all these years. But this differs from this new method of ship variation that CIG has been delivering since the summer of 2024. While we're still seeing traditional variants in models like the Starlancer and the Zeus releasing, which have directly benefited from not just the ship team itself increasing, but also the acquisition of Turbulent Games Studios up in Canada. This new series of variants is being delivered differently from those more traditional offerings. And yes, I'm just going to keep calling them variants. The Anvil Asgard looks like someone got a bit bored with the Anvil Valkyrie and switched up its silhouette. It already looks more visually different from the outside, but then you get inside and see the interior is entirely changed as well. A couple of walls have been moved, sure, but aside from the shape, the interior acts as a new ship. New space for vehicles, but less habitation space and seats for passengers. Walls deleted, ladders moved, components changed, and weaponry adjusted. With all these differences, it does end up requiring its own QA passes, balance tuning, gold standard updates, and more. The ship released a full 7 years after the ship that it's based on, with an entirely different name from the Valkyrie. But besides that time and name difference, is this really all that different from the Freelancer Max? The Max is a ship that received an extended chassis, just like the Asgard. It got a different thruster configuration, like the Asgard. It got more cargo and vehicle space, just like the Asgard. Its interior didn't change as much, which will definitely make a difference, but these two ships are not too different in their conception. They're just at two different places on the variation spectrum. One is called a variant, while the other gets its own full trailer, a store page, and a press release. It also carries some benefits, like editing parts of the original Valkyrie that people didn't like so much, which people do believe should have just been done to the Valkyrie. It also is releasing to a community that's more than double the size it was back when the Valkyrie came out, which on its own makes re-releases like this very lucrative. Hi, from the editing room, just editing this video, and I actually wanted to point out something. You can also see from some of the variant series that the paints are applicable across all variants. That is not true when you look at something like the Asgard, which is specifically getting different skins from the Valkyrie, so that's another distinct difference between some of these things. All right, back to the video. Ultimately, this is a marketing and editorial decision more than anything, and it nails the three main needs the development carries right now: keeping people interested in playing every update, getting new developers trained and up to date on the engine, and keeping the development funded until Squadron 42 can release. And at least for the Valkyrie specifically, I do think that if CIG released this ship as the Valkyrie Asgard, nobody would have batted an eye. They did the same thing with the Prowler utility. These newer variant release models are rubbing people the wrong way a little bit. Mainly this is because folks of the older ships feel left behind, though the Prowler utility, Saber Firebird, Terrapin Medical, RSI Meteor, and Guardian MX all released, leading to improvements to the originals as well. It's not a guarantee, but it does happen. People are also a little bit annoyed at the blurring of lines and confusing ways that these ships are starting to be released, alongside the Mark II ships, which admittedly only the Hornet actually is a Mark II. Nothing else has ever received the Mark II name besides the Zeus, which comes from lore. So the variants should be your main focus. But both the Freelancer Max and the Asgard and all the other variants are adding to that 200 ship figure. And when you take out any ship that could possibly be considered a variant of another ship, which does include the Asgard, that number drops to around 100. I think variants are a great way to pad out use cases, make more choices for players, and benefit from a bit more use on an already great design. It's also good to remember that every ship that's made for this game is also a ship that can be used in missions, by NPCs, and as rewards. Though I can see how they may bloat the balance process and make support and maintenance of the whole game much more difficult in the long run. Again, I'll point you towards that video I mentioned in the beginning of the video. It'll tell you all about the looming problem. But from CIG's perspective, these releases are giving great onboarding materials to new hires, needing to learn the custom game engine that they've spent so much time building. This allows the more advanced devs to work on bigger ship projects like the Perseus, the Pioneer, and the Ironclad. This is also giving every update drop something to sell. You can bet that part of their process of coming up with this update structure for the year was also based on the idea that each update would include a pretty big sale. And these are also offering for regular information drops in a year when Inside Star Citizen has been gutted. There is not much content coming out in terms of feature highlights and updates of progress, so this is almost all of the video content players have been getting. This ultimately is doing everything CIG focused on doing in 2025. Whether that is the most healthy for the player base or the game at the moment or in the long run, I don't know. But at the time of writing at least, players are definitely ready for the features to keep moving forward just like the ships and content. Ships, as always, are the main focus of Star Citizen, and much of the gameplay is just going to be focused around interacting with those ships. While CIG has discovered new ways to streamline the process of making those ships, and continues to go far beyond any other games in terms of detail and quality combined, they still do hit regular great additions that players love. And as long as they release, the game will continue to be built. Now, I know there are already comments being typed out about how selling ships is bad and they need to stop releasing ships. And to be honest, I get it to some extent. It's really difficult to see the features stall this year while the content, playability, and of course ship releases continue on at full throttle. But this is a big conversation meant for another video. And I will remind everybody that last year people were saying they should stop adding features, which now they're not adding features, and look where we are. Variants of ships are a slippery slope, no doubt. All ships in this game are a slippery slope, and the way that CIG handles them needs to be very careful. But the more ships that can be released within the bounds of their maintenance capacity, the more unique the game is going to be for everyone. Because you can also, just earn these ships in game. You don't have to buy them. So when it comes to ship releases, be wary of the semantics, variant, Mark II, what have you, I don't know. Call it what you want, and judge each ship by how well it does what you personally need it to do. Nobody else. Thank you for watching this supporter exclusive. It was mainly just rambling about ship variants, but I hope you enjoyed it. If you're interested in more opinionated deep dives like this, consider joining on YouTube or on Patreon below, and you can support what we do here. I hope you learned something new in this video, and I'll catch you in the next.